Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. I don't think there is a hotter topic than the one we're going to get into today. Kristin Rowell is a nutritional therapist and co-owner of Discover Strength Nashville. Kristin serves high-achieving professionals who want to prioritize health and wellness. But too often, stress and life get in the way. Cut to the nation's craze with GLPs, and we have a hot recipe. Kristin is here for the case file I call Weight Loss Woes. Some basics first, Kristin. What are GLPs?
Great question. So GLPs are actually, surprisingly, most people don't realize this, simply short chain amino acids. When you string a lot of amino acids together, they make a protein. When you string a shorter number of amino acids together, they make a GLP-1 or a peptide. So GLP stands for glucagon-like. It's a glucagon-like peptide. And the best way to think about them is they're really like a key that goes into a certain lock in the body. They're really messengers. They go into the body, they tell the body to do things, and then they're absorbed by the body. And they're really designed for precise and significant messages to do specific things. So one thing I'll just share, Roshini, about this is if you think about systemic medications that have downstream effects in the body, they might have side effects. Peptides generally have fewer to no side effects because they're so precise. So that's really where they're different.
Wow, thank you so much. I think that's the best definition I've ever heard. And now I really understand it. So my follow-up question, Kristin, is, are they found naturally in the body, or are these always injected or inserted in some way?
They're actually found naturally in the body. For example, the hormone insulin is a peptide. A GLP, glucagon-like peptide, is found naturally in the body. There are lots of natural peptides, hundreds, in fact, that we have in our bodies. However, there are now synthetic peptides that have been made with the whole intention to mimic what certain peptides do in the body. And so we can get into what the difference is in between some of these pharmaceuticals and this new term that everyone's banding about called microdosing. But the thing that I really want your listeners to hear is many peptides are made very naturally in the body, and they're things you just didn't realize were actually peptides.
So some of this is, it's really been a craze, right? It's just the drumbeat on GLPs, GLP-1s has been growing and growing. It's a multi-billion, maybe even $1 trillion pharmaceutical industry item. But at first we heard about it being used to treat people who have diabetes. And was that true? Is that how like the synthetic ones first came out?
Yes, great question. So really one way to think about it is GLPs are a category of peptide. Glucagon-like peptides are the ones that we think of in the weight loss category, which is what we're here to talk about today. But just so that everyone knows, there are hundreds of other peptides that do other things in the body. Support mitochondrial health, help with brain function. They can do lots of other things. GLPs specifically are the weight loss ones. So the one that most people have heard about is Ozempic. It's the one that's the most well-known. It's what people think of when you say GLP. But the peptide that is in the actual pharmaceutical medication called Ozempic, the peptide is called semaglutide. You cannot patent semaglutide by itself. So what Novo Nordisk did, who came out with Ozempic, is they have patented rather the exact dosing with the pen that goes into the body. So from my perspective as a functional nutritional therapist, for most people, for the average person who might want to use a GLP to take off 10 pounds, 30 pounds, something as a smaller amount that isn't hundreds of pounds, something like an Ozempic is just a mega dose of semaglutide where people may benefit from taking a much smaller dose of this peptide without having the downstream consequences that can come from taking so much of this particular compound.
So that is what I really want to get into. We have not covered GLPs and this whole area of the world and weight loss on this show. I've been wanting to for a while, but I also needed to get to a place where I was as neutral as I could possibly be. I am still pretty anti this stuff, but I have you on because I want you to clarify things not only for me, but for crisis filers. And maybe there's some ignorance out there. Now, I always think of it as a weight loss thing. And so the people that I know who have taken it, and I think there are people I don't know who have taken it, but it seems like I know when I see someone and their skin is hanging, or been this drastic weight loss since the last time I saw them. And I am not saying this in a joking manner. I am being as respectful as I can be. I myself am working on dropping a few pounds. I have no desire to go on these. I want to do it as naturally as I can. So I'm giving you kind of a confessional here, Kristin, because there are some negative downstream effects. And where is the whole industry and the health and the doctors and you as a functional nutritional therapist? Where do you stand on this stuff? Because I think a lot of people were misusing these.
I agree with you. And I will tell you that when they first came out, I was as anti as you. This is the worst thing in the world. Why are people going to do this? And the reality is, and I think this is just true for all of us as humans, a lot of us are just afraid of what we don't understand. And at the time, I'll admit I didn't understand it. And I would just see these images of these Hollywood celebrities on the red carpet who were a shell of their former selves, clearly had taken way too much of this medication. And I thought, this is a disaster, especially because I'm someone who comes from such a significant background, understanding nutritional detoxification and understanding that overdosing these medications can cause a very serious slowdown of gastric emptying. It can cause consequences like gastroparesis, which is almost a paralysis of our digestive system. I mean, that's horrible.
It sounds disgusting. And can it cause death?
So that particularly, I suppose, in the most severe consequences of overdosing these medications, I can't report to you about a single case I'm aware of, but it wouldn't surprise me if someone was able to die from becoming so malnourished as a result of taking these medications. Of course, you could break bones because you don't have any bone density. You're losing all your muscle tissue. That's a downstream consequence. So of course, in a severe case, it could. And like anything, I think that we have to come back to what is the molecule designed for, and is there a good use case in certain circumstances where these could be used healthfully and not overdosing so that people become a shell of their former self. So one of the things that I tell my clients, and I'll tell you, Roshini, this isn't something that I learned through my nutritional therapy training, but I'm actually a student of Peptide University, which is providing education to doctors and other practitioners around the country. And it's been amazing to learn from them. That's where I've gotten a lot of this education. So the thing that we have to understand about these molecules is that they are so powerful. And let's be honest, we have a serious obesity crisis in this country. We have a serious obesity crisis around the world. I'm not saying that these are the answer to our prayers. I'm saying that for someone who's already doing everything right, they are eating real food, they are moving at least 10,000 steps a day, they are strength training twice a week, they are getting quality sleep, they're getting sunlight in their eyes during the day. There's a whole host of the foundations that I would say we have to look at first.
And you've got to do those things first and actually make a legitimate attempt at those things.
Yes. I would say you have to make a legitimate attempt at those things and even give those as a part of your lifestyle. For some people, I want them to think of GLPs, especially in a microdosing capacity, not in an Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro or all of the other fandangled pharmaceuticals. And I should just mention, Roshini, that Wegovy and Ozempic, as I understand it, are semaglutide, but it's the Mounjaro and one other brand, I think it's Zepbound, that are tirzepatide. So semaglutide and tirzepatide are two different GLPs. Semaglutide is GLP only. Tirzepatide is GLP plus GIP. So in the clinical data, we see that tirzepatide has more of an effect with fat loss. And so for people who are microdosing, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I have now used a microdosing strategy in conjunction with a licensed medical provider who can provide a microdose to a couple of clients who literally were doing everything right over the course of 6 months. And because of their lifestyle, a combination of factors, maybe it had to do with some of the negative self-talk, my body's broken, those kinds of things, we've used a tirzepatide microdose as literally, I think of them as training wheels, just for a little bit.
So describe that obviously without naming names, but give us a profile of one of these clients, and there could be many of our viewers and listeners who would fit this bill, and your recommendation, or at least what you're doing now with those couple clients.
Sure. So I'd be happy to do that. So it's really, in my case, it's both women. Actually, another one is a man. So there's three now. So busy executive, busy parent, working parent, lots to do during the day, focused on sleep, does get quality sleep, eating real food, having intense 2 time a week strength training sessions, working to get at least 10,000 steps a day and actually achieving that most days. Yet, over several weeks of this consistency, not drinking alcohol, I should add that one, okay? Several weeks of this consistency, literally the scale not moving. And, I don't care about weight, I care about body composition. I want you to have a good amount of fat, of muscle on your body and less fat. So I want women in like the low to mid 20% body fat or lower. And I want men about 10% lower than that. So nothing working. And I said, well, you're at a point now where we've been doing so much right for so long. They also probably are a woman in perimenopause. I would say that's true with both of these women. And doing hormone therapy, having everything else figured out, but they needed something to really reverse the insulin resistance. It tends to come up most often in people who have insulin resistance that has developed over the course of 10 or 20 years. And it's taking a long time for their body to reverse it. And this can be, it's almost like a jump start or a
Does
springboard.
insulin resistance, Kristin, mean that they're diabetic or pre-diabetic, or just insulin resistance is its own thing?
Insulin resistance is literally the last train stop before type 2 diabetes. So that's a fantastic question. So type 2 diabetes, if anyone can see my hands here, they're here. Insulin sensitivity, which is the goal, is here. And then the distance between insulin sensitivity and type 2 diabetes is a spectrum of insulin resistance where you get more insulin resistance until boom, you wake up one day and you become type 2 diabetic. So a quick takeaway for your listeners that I tell everyone is, unfortunately, in our regular Western medicine system, you are not tested on your blood work for a metric called fasting insulin. I recommend everyone request that test from their doctor. It will allow you to see if you have developed insulin resistance or you've been developing it over years. Your fasting glucose isn't enough of a marker. Unfortunately, we see our fasting glucose, it might be 85. The next year it's 88. The next year it's 90. The next year it's 95. The next year it's 99. All of those years, your doctor would look at you and say, you're good. You're healthy. You don't have insulin resistance.
Because that's in a range that is medically acceptable.
Correct. And then all of a sudden you hit 100 and they're like, oh, we might have to put you on some medication. You might need metformin. It looks like you're developing, it looks like you're going to be type 2 diabetic soon. And it's like, wait a second. I was becoming insulin resistant between 85 and 99, but because you didn't test my fasting insulin on the blood work, we didn't discover that. So I really recommend that everyone ask their doctor for it, because insulin resistant is something that we want to reverse, and you can reverse with your lifestyle practices and strength training, of course, real food. And then in some cases, for a short period of time, I do recommend for my clients that they see a practitioner to microdose a particular GLP.
And when you say a short period of time, so these 3 clients of yours, under the oversight of a medical professional, they're microdosing. And what duration of time will they be doing that?
So it could be 8 weeks. It could be 16 weeks. It usually isn't longer than that. And then you would take a break for a period of time for several months.
But continuing to live in a healthy way.
Correct. Continuing the strength training, the real food nutrition. The biggest thing that these clients have reported to me, Roshini, is I can't get over how much I just don't have the food noise. It's like I'm not, oh my gosh, when's my next meal? What can I eat? I just ate, now I'm still hungry. It's like they had chatter in their mind that was interrupting them in their day. And now food becomes more of a source of nourishment and nutrition and energy instead of this constant,
not an emotional crutch or like the noise.
Exactly.
I love it. I love how you term that.
Exactly. And so think of how empowering it is for them. I mean, of course, in a perfect world, I would pluck them out of their reality, take them on a wellness retreat for 3 months. And I know I could do all of this without the GLP medication, but it's just not
I want you to do that with me.
People.
I want to go on a wellness retreat for 3 months. I wish I could.
Wouldn't it be incredible? Yes. So this is like, I always say, it's literally like putting on training wheels for a little bit. I am obviously not a licensed provider, so I can't do these on my own, but I do recommend them in conjunction with certain providers that I know all around the country. So my clients, wherever they're located, I can find someone that they can work with.
I love this. Well, Kristin, you have completely opened up my mind to this topic, which it is not every time I do an episode that I really need a lot of education on something because I have such a strong belief. And this is one of them where I came into this, and I know I told you this when we prepped. I have a very strong anti-attitude. And you've really opened my mind because I can see how there are such legitimate uses. But again, used responsibly, used with oversight from you, someone like you, a medical professional. They need a team. The person needs a team. They cannot just do this on their own. So let's quickly talk about all of the ads. You cannot turn on the TV or your digital handheld device and miss, like there are ads all the time. People are just ordering them. This makes no sense to me. Isn't there some kind of regulation from having you order this on your own and just self-injecting? I mean, the whole thought of it seems crazy to me.
Well, this is sort of one of the most interesting issues about peptides right now because of the ever-changing FDA regulations. My cynical brain would say that there has been a tamp down about a lot of really effective peptides because of the fact that there are pharmaceutical companies that can't patent them. And so it all has to come back to profit and who's going to make the most money, right? The problem with that is, even if that's true, let's pretend that's true for the moment, is then what develops and what we're really seeing right now is a huge black market for peptides, which means it's the wild, wild west, which can be scary. People don't know where their peptides are coming from if they don't know the actual company, if they aren't working with a licensed provider, if it isn't a particular compounding pharmacy that has certain regulations that it has to adhere to in terms of its compounding. And right now, even though there was this decision on April 15th that certain peptides are going to be allowed to come back into the compounding market, there's still a lot that aren't. So when people are doing it on their own for research or for other reasons, you really have to be careful and know what you're doing and who you're getting your peptides from in order to do it that way, because it truly is the Wild West. I mean, unless these companies are regularly doing third-party lab analysis testing, you don't know what's in that vial. You don't know if it comes from China or some other country or whether it's made here in the US. So it's really important
to know
and how
pure it is or isn't. All of those questions.
Yes.
I mean, I just think about any of us that get our tooth pulled or tonsils out or have a surgery, even if it's a simple knee surgery or colonoscopy, even, anytime you have something inserted into your body, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And certainly most of us would not do that on our own. And so I just kind of put that out there, folks, because the thought of ordering something that you don't really have the kind of knowledge that Kristin has on it, and you're not a medical professional, and you order that and you inject it into yourself, to me, it's a major, major crisis waiting to happen. I mean, we're in it. It's happening. So, but we're not going to turn back the train on this. But this is why a professional like you is so important on our show to really put the right information out there. What's that last, one nugget of a tip that you want everyone watching or listening to our episode today to know if they are going to look into this topic?
I think the thing that I want everyone to take away is that truly peptides are not going away. So they are here to stay. So it's important to become educated about them, but they are never a substitute for the foundations. We must be eating real food. We must be strength training. We must be getting outside in the sunshine and doing our daily movement. We must be focused on sleep. These things are foundational. Peptides can be sort of the icing on the cake in certain circumstances for certain people, but they don't replace the basics.
Right, because muscle atrophy, bone density loss, those are very real things when there's overdose on this or overkill on this.
Absolutely. And the problem is people don't realize this, but this is what I largely do in my energetically efficient business is I require my clients to get a DEXA scan and we work on building up their muscle tissue and dropping their body fat over a period of time. People who are taking high doses of things like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, they're largely losing, at least this is what's shown in the clinical research so far, a tremendous amount of lean muscle tissue, which lowers their resting metabolic rate, meaning the amount of calories they are able to consume without gaining weight is less. So now they go off the medication and they're in a worse position than when they started. If they strength train while being on the medication, they should be able to preserve their lean muscle tissue. If they focus on real food, they should be able to preserve it. But for many people, they're taking such a high dose of this medication that they don't have an appetite. They don't want to eat protein. There's all sorts of downstream calamity, which is why I just get nervous about the mega doses of these molecules, because the molecules are very powerful, but you don't need a lot to have them be effective.
It is. It's really a magic molecule. We can see why it got to this level. All right, well, Kristin Rowell sees clients all over the country in person and virtually. You can connect directly with her at energeticallyefficient.com. This case file is powered by Northwing Digital. Northwing Digital is driven by a simple mission: help businesses succeed. Guided by core values, trust through transparency, and GSD, get stuff done. Northwing specializes in SEO and paid digital ads that deliver measurable results. From Google search to paid social, strategies that help your business stand out and grow. Make your marketing dollars work harder. Visit northwingdigital.com to get started. Northwing Digital, your partner in growth. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Visit thecrisisfiles.com for all 4 seasons of the show. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.